Hello everyone, I'm Freaky and welcome to the video. My friends, let me ask you something. Are you one of those people that likes history? Are you one of those people that likes things on ancient Egypt or Greece? Do you like history about knights and castles? Do you like history about the beginning of a country? Or maybe you're one of those people who has been forced to learn about history, like for example, slavery. Yeah, I'm going to open that chestnut. Yeah, we've all been there. We've had documentaries, we've had teachers telling us about slavery, all that stuff. Okay, I'll just get straight to the point. When it comes to history, it is hard to tell what exactly happened in the past, but we put our best minds together and we go through all sorts of things. The layouts of the area, DNA tests, old records, and so on and so on. And when they get enough evidence, they would make documentaries of these findings. I mean, come on, there are literally loads of World War I and II documentaries on the History Channel. I'm pretty sure at this time, everybody knows what happened in the war, thanks to all those documentaries. And there are loads of history classes that we take in school as well. Again, slavery, our teachers talking about the kings and queens of the past, if you're in the UK, and if you're living in America, you would talk about the founding fathers, and so on and so on. Our personal history of what our country did in the past. So you guys basically know what I'm trying to say. And today, I'm going to be talking about just that. But when it comes to history, there are loads of things that don't sit right with me when we're being taught in schools and documentaries on TV, all that stuff. And when it comes to these days of teaching history, I mean, heck, even in my day, there was things that I was never taught about in school, in history class. But I'll get to that later. But when it comes to this day and age, we have the wokey SJW age when it comes to telling history. And not just these days, but over the years, we've had people teaching us a one-sided history or a made-up history. And there are certain things about history that we were never taught about. Okay, this is going to be a long video, so I'll just get straight to the point. In recent times, we are always told that the West did slavery. It was white people who did slavery. And you've probably seen this in your history class, either told by teachers or you saw that series of Roots, the TV series where this African boy got kidnapped by white people and was taken away and was sold into slavery, even though in reality slavery in Africa was going on for hundreds of years before the white man came along. Or here's another one. There's also Netflix's Cleopatra, and we are told that she was a black woman, which wasn't true because she was Greek. Or there's the movie Mel Gibson's Braveheart, and this movie was about William Wallace fighting the English. Now, this movie has a lot, and I mean a lot of historical inaccuracies in it. I mean, you could almost say that Braveheart is a propaganda movie because Mel Gibson hates the English. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. We are either told lies or given a one-sided talk on what happened in history, or it was all made up so that it would make a certain group of people look like the bad guys and another group of people look like the good guys. And there are also things that were never taught in history. Like, did you know that the Native Americans actually enslaved black people and they refused to give up their slaves? And did you know that it was actually the British Empire that abolished slavery worldwide at one point? And that is exactly what I'm talking about. There was certain things that we were taught. There was one-sided views on history. Some things were made up and things that we were never taught about. And also, there are some parts of history that some people want to keep under wraps. Like, did you know in World War II that the Japanese did a lot of horrible stuff during World War II that it made the Nazis look like Boy Scouts? Or did you know that Islam invaded India multiple times and killed over 80 million people? And that's also another problem. You're going to have groups of people who comes from these different countries and religions and races who come out saying, oh, this never happened, oh no, we didn't do that, no. And they say all this just to make themselves not look like the bad guys. They either convince themselves that it didn't happen, or they know it did happen, but they didn't want anybody else to believe that it actually did happen. What I'm trying to get at is that we need somebody or a group of people to teach us actual history and not give us a one-sided point of view, nothing made up, not trying to make one side the good guy and the other one the bad guy, not falsifying history. We need a group of people teaching us what really happened in the past, because these days we've always been told that it's all the white man's fault for all the atrocities that happened in the world. Like, white people are the only ones who have ever done slavery and genocides and so on, and all this horrible stuff. This is something that needs to be done. We need to show people that other races, other creeds, other countries have done just as bad, if not worse, than what white people have done. We are told all the time by the left that the white man has only ever done bad things, while other races didn't do anything wrong. I mean, if you was to look at Count Dankula, he himself even said that even though Braveheart is a good movie, it is very historically inaccurate. And if you was to watch Sagan of Akkad, or aka Carl Benjamin's video on the British crusade against slavery, you will see not only was the British one of the first, if not the first country to stop slavery, but you will also see that the black Africans in Africa was enslaving other black Africans, and it was going on for hundreds and hundreds of years. Yeah, I know I've already said that, but that's exactly what I mean. The left doesn't want anybody to learn about this stuff. They always want the narrative to always go their way. They want to make the British look bad. They want to make the English look bad. They want the West to look bad, while everybody else in the world was all nice and everyone got along and so on. I mean, come on, we all know that these leftists have an agenda, because they want their enemies to look like the bad guys. They want everybody to believe that the white man or the British or the Americans were the only people who have ever done any bad things. So that way, the left can justify their hatred for the West or white people. But it's not just that. There is also propaganda movies or series, like for example, Barefoot Gen or Grave of the Fireflies anime movies. Now, when it comes to these two movies was made in Japan, and it tells the stories about the wars that was going on in Japan. Now, some people might say that these movies was a representation of how terrible war is, and you know what? These two movies are very heartbreaking. It just pulls at your heartstrings on what happens to these characters within these movies. But that's also the problem, because when it comes to Japan, they never admit to the atrocities that they did in World War II. The rape of Nanking, Unit 731, the bombings in Pearl Harbor. But the thing is, modern day Japan doesn't know about the atrocities that they did in World War II. Either that, or they deny it ever happened. Or they do know, but they deny it anyways. Now, when it comes to Barefoot Gen and Grave of the Fireflies, you could say that these two movies are propaganda. I know there's going to be some anime fans out there that's probably going to hate me for what I'm about to say, but it is kind of true. Because again, these two movies play at your heartstrings, and you see all the devastation of what the two bombs did in World War II. I mean, come on, melted zombie people? I mean, come on. These two movies almost feels like it's trying to make you feel sympathy towards the Japanese, that they were the sad victims. I mean, heck, I've been hearing rumours on the internet that the Japanese believe the reason why the Americans attacked them was because the Americans were racist. I mean, if you was to look on any video on YouTube that talks about the rape of Nanking and Unit 731, you'll have people from Japan saying that, oh, this never happened, or oh, it's Chinese propaganda, etc., etc. But when it comes to the West, we are told all the time how terrible we are in history. Like, oh, the white man stole land, or oh, the white man did slavery, oh, the white man did this and that. And it makes other people look like the sorry, sad little victims. Even though the Native Americans was killing each other, raping each other's women, taking each other's lands. And this was going on for like thousands of years. So where's the documentaries on that? Again, I know there's going to be people out there who's going to say that, oh, Barefoot Gen and Grave of the Fireflies is just supposed to be about how war is terrible and so on. But we've never seen anything negative that came from the Japanese within these movies. They were just shown as the victims. I mean, the horrors that the Japanese did in World War II was so horrible that it took a Nazi to say, Jesus Christ, these people are insane. Yeah, even the Nazis was disgusted on what the Japanese did in World War II. I bet you guys didn't even know that it was actually a Nazi named John Rabe that actually saved the Chinese from Japanese soldiers. And again, to this day, that they denied anything that they did to the Chinese during World War II. And there was also the atrocities of the Philippines, Korea. But again, the Japanese never apologized. Or let's have a look at another propaganda series from Palestine. There's this YouTuber called Nick Crowley, and he talks about the TV show that brainwashed children in Palestine. I think the show was called Tomorrow's Pioneers or something. And this show was there to brainwash Muslim children into thinking that the Jews in America are bad people. I mean, if you want propaganda, this was freaking propaganda. And I'm talking about the series Tomorrow's Pioneers. If I was to go into detail on what this series was about, I would be here all day. So if you guys want to go and check out Nick Crowley's video, the TV show that brainwashed children, please go and check it out. And that's exactly what I mean. We're always given propaganda and lies from our enemies. Again, like Braveheart. And it isn't just ancient history, but it's also modern times too. Like for example, there's this YouTuber called BriefCase, and he talks about crimes that happened in the past, like what happened to all these people and how these people committed the crimes and murders and stealing and all that stuff. And you know what? This is exactly what we need. We need somebody to talk about actual history of what happened in the past. When it comes to BriefCase, his videos are so freaking awesome. And yeah, the majority of his videos are in the past of what certain people did. But he also has some modern murder cases on his channel too. And that's also another thing that we need. We need people to make documentaries of old and new crimes that people have done in the past, regardless of what it is. And not just people like these ones on BriefCase, but we need to teach people every single little thing on what we know about history. And I'm talking about actual history. Nothing made up, like with Braveheart or Cleopatra, from the very, very big things that everybody knows about to history that not many people know about. Like again, did you know that the Scots enslaved the Irish? Yeah, not many people know that. We need to show people that every single human from every country, every creed and every race has done horrible stuff in the past. Genocide, slavery, heck, even other countries and other races have done colonization and has been racist to other people. I mean, think about this for a second. We are told all the time by people, movies, series, comics, games, and so on, saying how the West is terrible, or oh, how the white man is terrible, or oh, they enslave people, or oh, they colonize places, or oh, how white people are racist to other people. We are shown this all the time within our own medias, saying how terrible the white man is, and how terrible the West is, or how America is terrible, and Britain is terrible, and so on. We're told by other white people, we're told by POCs, and we are told in other medias made in our own countries saying how terrible the West is. And I'm sure that it's easy for other countries to get their hands on this sort of information that was made in the West. But ask yourselves this: when was the last time you ever saw a country ever talk about the sins that they did in the past? When was the last time they ever talked about their problems from the past? When was the last time they talked about their racism and their prejudice, or their invasions, or their slavery, or their barbaric practices? Like with Turkey and the Armenian genocide, where they killed millions of Armenians and forced women and children to convert to Islam. They denied this ever happened, and they never talk about. Or again, Japan. They don't make media, or that you have people talking about saying that how terrible that the Japanese are, or other Japanese saying that, oh, how terrible they are. And even if people from their own race was to say all this stuff, they would call those people sellouts, all because they told the truth on what their people did. Or let's have a look at China. They killed over 45 million of their own people. I think it was under Mao. And there's also been times when people in the West was talking about like a certain country, and that country didn't like how that country was talking about their country. For example, did you know there's an episode from The Simpsons where they actually go to Brazil, and The Simpsons was talking about all the stereotypes that was happening in Brazil, and Brazil didn't like this. Or is another famous example, there was South Park's banned in China, and they talk about how China suppresses speech that they don't like within other countries. And it's all thanks to this episode that South Park was actually banned in China, like literally, all because they didn't like the truths that South Park was saying about China. And it isn't just in our medias, it's also online too. Like whenever somebody says, oh, it was the British Empire that abolished slavery, you're going to have these left-wing trolls say that it never happened, saying, oh, the British Empire didn't abolish slavery. And this is the thing that the left doesn't want. They don't want their narratives to be broken because of truths. They don't want to look like the bad guy, but they want people that they hate to look like the bad guy. And the thing is, they'll make up stuff like they did in Braveheart just so they'll have more ammunition to slander their enemies, or like the Woman King, or they'll exaggerate things. And there's one other thing I want to talk about. The left goes on saying that, oh, how white people are homophobic, or they're racist, or oh, they're sexist, and so on. But they'll never ever say anything about other places, especially in Asia, because everywhere else is just as, if not more racist than the West. If you was gay and you went to the Middle East, yeah, you wouldn't come back. I mean, heck, I even saw this one clip from a YouTube video where it had Chinese people calling black people the M-word or the N-word, and women from the Middle East or the East are treated like property. I mean, do we get any media on that? Do we talk about the racism and sexism or homophobia from those countries? No, of course not. And that's exactly my point. We don't hear nothing from these other countries about their evil history of racisms, genocides, slavery, misogyny, homophobia, but instead the media tries to impose that all these places that is non-white are sorry sad victims and are really, really nice places. I mean, if you were to look at the Philippines, Korea and China, they would talk non-stop of what the Japanese did to them. But in the West, do we hear anything about the negatives that the Japanese did? I mean, yeah, sure, we've got documentaries telling us what the Japanese did, but we rarely hear of them. It's just all the Nazis, the Nazis, the Nazis, the Nazis. But sometimes they'll talk about the Japanese, but not in great detail, like they would with the Nazis. Or here's another example. You know when the movie Hercules came out from Disney? Disney was hoping that Greece would hopefully accept the movie. But apparently, Greece didn't want anything to do with the movie. Its audience, its critics, its scholars, all rejected the movie because it wasn't following the actual history of what the gods was all about. It's the same with Cleopatra. People from Egypt hated what Netflix did to Cleopatra. I mean, come on, she wasn't black, she was Greek. Pocahontas, the Woman King, Braveheart, Roots, all historically inaccurate, which is why we should always stick to facts instead of making up things on the fly, or making up things so things will just go your way. I mean, heck, in recent times, the left has also been putting in black people in roles of historic people that actually existed, who was white, like one of our monarchies. Or they rewrote a story and put in black people in stories when there wasn't any black people within those time periods, like A Christmas Carol. In recent times, they've put black people into Charles Dickens' A Christmas Carol, and this was around the time when there was no black people around the time of Charles Dickens. And it's the same with The Witcher, Lord of the Rings. I mean, even fantasy isn't safe from the left's grasp. I mean, yeah, sure, it's all fantasy and anything can happen, but let's just say, for example, that there was this fantasy story in China, for example, like the story Journey to the West, and this story was made in China. But let's just say, for example, that the left got their hands on it, and they said, I am going to retell this story, and I'm going to put in some black characters there, and I'm going to put some gay people there, and I'm going to put some trans there, and so on and so on. Well, you know what? I would say no to this because, number one, this story was made around the time when there was only Chinese people, and race swapping and gender bending would be a disservice to the story. So you should follow the book to a T. It's the same with Lord of the Rings. It was an Anglo-Saxon, Celtic, European centric sort of story. The same with The Witcher. It revolved around Poland and Europe, and these stories centered around the past, where there was no Asians or black or brown or whatever, and just recreating it just to push your agenda is just wrong. I mean, how would you guys feel if a white person says, you know what, we're going to take this African story and we're going to recreate it and put loads of white people in it, even though there was no white people within those stories from years ago. Now, some people might say something like, oh, but freaky, a long time ago, people did use white people instead of using POCs for those roles. And yes, I know, it was wrong then and it's wrong now. Characters shouldn't be race swapped regardless. And yes, I know there's going to be those sort of people who's going to say that, oh, but since some stories are fantasy, it doesn't matter what colour the characters are. So the people who actually says this, so let's just say, for example, that since Black Panther is a fantasy story or a work of fiction, does that mean that you can replace him with a white person? And if your answer is no because it's wrong, well, I say it's wrong for people to replace white characters with POCs, like what they did with Velma from Scooby-Doo, the same with Ariel from The Little Mermaid, and every single ginger character. Yeah, have you guys noticed that? They race swapped every single ginger for POCs. So wait a minute, hold on. Are you guys telling me that gingers aren't allowed to have representation? I mean, for crying out loud, make your own freaking characters. Don't just race swap them. Anyways, I'm going off track. It's trying to say otherwise. Anyways, it isn't just actual history that we need to teach, but we need to call out people who is telling lies. Like, for example, there's this YouTuber called History Legends, and he has this one video called Woke TikToker Hates Britain for Its Colonial Past. And yes, even though Britain did colonize India, Islam also invaded India multiple times and colonized India. And what this guy does in his video, he calls out a person that's on TikTok saying, oh, how the British was evil to the Indians in India. And the guy is Muslim, but the guy in History Legends calls out his hypocrisy because the guy he's calling out is a Muslim. Because again, Islam did invade India multiple times. And that's what gets me with some people. They say how evil and horrible the West was, or the white man was, or America was, or Britain was, or so on and so on. But they will never ever call out the stuff that they did, or their culture, or their religion, or what their race did in the past. They will just blame other people and not bring up all the horrible stuff that they did in the past. Which is why we need to add more stuff, true stuff, to these sort of arguments. Like, for example, you know how you have these leftists saying how, oh, the white man came into these Indian lands, or aka Native American lands, and they stole the land from the Native Americans. Well, you tell them that the Native Americans was killing each other, raping each other, stealing each other's lands, and they also enslaved black people as well. Because we need to remember that there is not one race of people, one religion of people, or one nation of people that hasn't done anything wrong. So it would be good to mention these sort of things, to not make them look like the victims. And when I mean them, I'm talking about anybody and everybody who tries to play the victim when they themselves have a past that's just as bad, if not worse. And yeah, sure, you're going to have those people who will believe in lies, thinking the people who says that this thing happened or that thing happened will think it's all lies because their family or friends or the community said so. I mean, who are you going to believe? Strangers telling you that it's not true, or family that you know all your life? Or you're going to have people who knows that the thing that they believe in isn't true, but they decide to tell lies because it helps their cause, or helps their narrative, which is why we need to tell actual truths and show people evidence. So that's exactly what we need to do. We need to show evidence, show actual truths, and show people that other races, other countries, other religions have done just as bad, if not worse. Because again, no human, no race, no country, no religion is innocent of anything. So yeah, that's all I gotta say here. So what do you guys think? Am I right? Am I wrong? Do you think all history should be taught? Do you think every single race, religion, country's past should be shown to everybody? Please let me know in the comment section below, and let's get a discussion going. I'm Freaky. Peace out. And please don't forget to check out my other social medias. Please go and check out my alternative video platforms: Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Twitch, and please come and hang out on my Discord server. We can play games, have a movie night or a series night, or you can watch me play a few games. And if you guys have any suggestions of any videos you want me to react to, or any video ideas in general, you can tell me on my Discord. I'm also on Twitter, Gab, Getter, and Paula. I'm on Locals, Tumblr, Minds, and if you guys want to support me, please go and check out my Subscribestar. It's like Patreon, but better. All these things are in the description box below, so please go and check them out and subscribe to them. I'm Geek Freak. Peace out.